show. Joining me now, live from the DNC in Chicago, is Fox contributor and former UBS America's chairman and CEO Robert Wolf, and with me here on set, Pence Wealth Management CIO Dryden Pence. Robert, I want to take it to you. An 8-day win streak for the markets, inflation cooling, that all helped the narrative, real tailwinds there for the Democrats. But this just as the DNC has its curtain raiser, Kamala Harris and her price controls policy is suddenly front and center. Can you tell me what people should think of this? Because even the Washington Post is giving it a thumbs down. What is the chatter in Chicago?
Yeah, first of all, if you heard the speech, as I'm sure you did, she didn't use the term price control. Actually, she used the idea of working with business to make sure that there were no bad actors in the industry. And she was talking more about price gouging, anti-collusion, and making sure there was competitiveness. And Liz, you know that in like 37 states, that's a law. Actually, you've had situations where even the Attorney General in Texas have gone after gas stations. You've had the Attorney General in New York gone after those at Walgreens. And so and you've had actually the Senate take on meat distributors. So this is not a new thing, and it's not like there can be a magic wand to change this. It's a regulated type of policy.
Yeah, I know we have some Republican states like Arkansas and Texas that have their version of, I don't want to say price controls, but they want to make sure that the consumer is not getting hurt in any of this. It polls well, apparently with undecided voters, but I'm just wondering, when you look at it, Robert, there are people who really believe that it's an adjudicated, to say price gouging, that has to be an investigation that reveals something. You know, grocery store
Correct.
Margins are very, very thin at this point. So isn't it really maybe the meat and the egg providers versus the grocery store chains?
Yeah, my view would be it's looking for those bad actors who are taking advantage of disastrous events, whether it was COVID or whether it is some hurricane situation like happened in Texas. And so, you know, I looked at her, I spoke to her Friday, Liz, and I looked at her economic message probably a little different than most. I thought the 4 quadrants were housing, food, healthcare, and childcare. You know, to live the American dream, those are the 4 things you want right. I actually thought it was aspirational. I thought it talked about opportunities. And it certainly, she went right there and said, we have to reduce costs. You know, inflation's still too high. So I thought it was a pragmatic speech. I know that a lot was taken out of context. That happens when policy speeches are made.
Yeah, that's very true. Dryden is standing right here. Dryden is a wealth manager, and you know, Dryden, when we look at all that's going on right there in Chicago, and you bring it back to Wall Street, some of the issues are very much tax related for middle class and lower income people. And do they invest in the stock market? You know, the stock market is a different type of gauge, is it not?
Well, it's a different type of gauge, but 58% of Americans today have some investments in the stock market. So you can't just take actions that would affect capital formation in this country and our free market system, which has actually created the greatest economy in the world, and begin to do price controls or begin to do things that begin to upset the free market economy and system. Because, again, with 58% of the people in America owning and having their retirements and all of their future tied up into the stock market, you can't begin to have policies that are negative to capital formation, growth and profits, earnings, all of those things, because now it affects most Americans.
Let's talk about housing. And Robert, she had come up with some ideas about giving $25,000 to new home buyers. We got to think about the housing builders, the companies that build these. Part of the issue is that there is a lack of supply. Now, the housing stocks have done pretty darn well lately, but are you concerned at all that if you increase demand by giving people a big check to buy their first home, then you crimp the supply, which is exactly what has happened over the past 3 years with things like grocery items?
Liz, I hear you kind of. There's a lot of music in the background.
I can hear.
Hopefully you can hear me.
Yeah, I can.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so what I would say first to Dryden is he must love the Democrat presidents, because Clinton, Obama, and Biden have had incredible stock performance, as he would tell you. And we know that the 3 largest downturns in the stock market, over 2,000 each, were under former President Trump. And I heard you talk a little before about industrial America. We should be applauding that. All of a sudden, factories are being built like never before, and we have a comeback in manufacturing, whether it's a Georgia battery plant or the Arizona semiconductor plant. And the last thing I want to say on housing, sorry for that quick pivot, is that for the most part, we've had something we've never seen, this correlation that first-time buyers aren't buying existing homes because they don't exist. I don't agree with the idea of $25,000 being given to someone unless we make sure the 3 million homes are bought first.
Yep.
I hope you hear me. There's music in the background.
Well, Dryden, you weigh in on that?
Absolutely. The issue on housing, it is more of a supply issue than it is a demand issue. And generally, if you're going to subsidize these purchases, it's just going to push up the prices and exacerbate a problem. So I think that we need to really focus, the policy needs to focus on increasing the supply, and that will make the big difference for people.
AMD, it is at the very top of the NASDAQ 100 right now, getting a big bump. It's made a big acquisition. What's your push behind that and not, say, for example, an NVIDIA? Well, the point is it's AMD making an acquisition to go after NVIDIA. Yeah. So this is a strategic acquisition on AMD's part. They're really the number 2 provider, and they need to have this increased data center capability and all these things to be more competitive going forward. And the point of the matter is that this is AMD's strategic entry to begin to challenge NVIDIA. Well, we're looking at a lot of challenges from competitors and rivals in the chip space. This is what capitalism is all about. It's great to see you, Dryden. And Robert, thank you very much. I know it's loud there, but thanks for putting up with it. We appreciate it.